Evelyn Carter, a 75-year-old retired school teacher, stepped into Sunset Brew, her heart pounding with a mix of nostalgia and unease. She'd come to this rundown joint in the heart of Oakland to meet her son, Snoop Dogg, the world-famous rapper she hadn't seen in years. Once a cozy haven where her family shared laughter over steaming coffee and warm apple pie, the place now reeked of motor oil and menace. Gone were the checkered tablecloths and friendly chatter. In their place, the walls glared with biker gang trophies, gleaming chrome skulls, faded leather patches, and photos of tattooed men scowling astride roaring Harleys. The air thrummed with heavy metal blasting from a jukebox, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows across the room. Evelyn clutched her purse tighter, her frail fingers trembling as she scanned the hostile crowd. Roughneck bikers in studded jackets lounged at the bar, their eyes narrowing at her like wolves sizing up prey. This wasn't the Sunset Brew she'd known. It was a powder keg waiting to blow. Her breath hitched as memories of happier times clashed with the chilling reality. Her sanctuary had been hijacked by a lawless crew who ruled through fear. She'd faced prejudice before, but the stakes felt higher now, the tension thicker than the smog outside. Evelyn squared her shoulders, determined to stand her ground, unaware that this reunion with Snoop was about to ignite a storm neither of them could have foreseen. The air in Sunset Brew was a toxic stew of sweat, stale beer, and barely contained violence as Evelyn Carter edged deeper into the lion's den. Her silver hair caught the flicker of a dying neon sign, a fragile beacon in a room drowning in shadows and sin. She'd come to this Oakland dive to reunite with her son, Snoop Dogg, the rap legend whose voice had conquered the world. But this wasn't the quaint spot of her memories anymore. The walls pulsed with menace, plastered with biker gang relics, rusted chains, a skull-topped gearshift, and photos of grizzled men glaring like they'd just rolled out of hell. The jukebox screamed heavy metal, a relentless assault on her ears, as bikers sprawled across the joint, their leather creaking with every move. Evelyn's chest tightened, her pulse hammering like a war drum. She'd faced hate before, but this was a powder keg with a lit fuse. She hadn't taken 2 steps when her shoulder grazed a mountain of a man. Rex, a biker with a face carved from nightmares, a jagged scar slashing his cheek like a warning. He spun on her, eyes blazing with raw fury. "Watch where you're going, you old hag," he roared, his voice a guttural snarl that sliced through the noise. "What's a relic like you doing in our house? You lost, or just too stupid to know your place?" The room froze, every head swiveling toward her, bikers grinning like sharks smelling blood. Evelyn's heart lurched, but she'd survived decades of venom, schoolyard bullies, back alley bigots, and she wasn't about to break now. She squared her thin shoulders, smoothing her cardigan with hands that shook but refused to falter. "I'm terribly sorry," she said, her voice a steel thread in the chaos. "My eyes aren't what they used to be. Please, let me pass." Rex's lip curled into a sneer, his breath reeking of whiskey and spite. "Your kind don't belong here," he spat, low and lethal, the words dripping with poison. Laughter erupted from his crew. Harsh, jagged, a pack of hyenas circling a wounded deer. Evelyn pushed forward, her loafers scraping the sticky floor, every step a defiance of the hate boring into her back. She could feel Rex's gaze, a predator tracking prey, as she wove through the crowd. The bar loomed ahead, where a waitress with a peroxide mop and a scowl slung drinks, her eyes flicking over Evelyn like she was trash. Booths overflowed with more bikers, their tattooed fists clenched around bottles, whispering threats she couldn't quite hear, but could damn well feel. She aimed for a window booth, a sliver of escape in this suffocating trap. But the air grew heavier, the stares sharper. Rex swaggered back to his table, slamming a meaty fist down, hard enough to rattle the glassware. "Thinks she can waltz in here like she owns the joint," he growled, loud enough to make her flinch. "We'll see about that." Evelyn sank into the booth, her hands locked together, knuckles white. She was here for Snoop, her rock, her pride. But the walls were closing in. Rex's shadow stretched longer, his crew shifting like a storm about to break. She wasn't just out of place. She was a spark in a room full of gasoline, and the first explosion was seconds away. "Yo, crew, if this showdown's got you on edge, smash that one in the comments and subscribe to ride this wild wave. Not vibing it? Drop a like anyway and tell me what's off. I'm all ears. Will Evelyn hold her ground? Can Snoop drop in before it all blows up? Hit that bell, 'cause the next drop's gonna be fire, and you'll kick yourself if you miss how this Oakland brawl unfolds." The door to Sunset Brew slammed open with a bang that rattled the grimy windows, cutting through the suffocating haze like a gunshot. Snoop Dogg stepped inside, a towering figure draped in a black hoodie, gold chains glinting under the dim lights, and dark shades masking his eyes. The rap icon's presence hit the room like a shockwave. Every head snapped toward him, the jukebox's metal screech fading into an eerie hum. Evelyn, perched in her window booth, felt her heart leap. Her boy had arrived, but the air crackled with danger, thicker than the Oakland smog outside. The bikers froze, their beers halfway to their lips, as Snoop's boots thudded against the floor, each step a deliberate beat in the brewing storm. He'd come for his mom, but Sunset Brew was no stage. This was a cage, and the beasts inside were already snarling. Rex, still simmering from his clash with Evelyn, straightened up from his table, his scarred face twisting into a grimace. Well, well, he sneered, loud enough to bounce off the skull-lined walls. Look who's slumming it, Mr. Big Shot Rapper. What's with the bling, pretty boy? You lost? Or just here to play dress-up in our house? His crew erupted in harsh laughter, but it died fast as Snoop stopped dead center, turning his head slow and deliberate toward the taunt. Behind the shades, his jaw tightened, years of facing down hecklers and haters steeling him for this moment. Buck, a beefy biker with a shaved head and a swastika tattoo creeping up his neck, lumbered forward, cracking his knuckles. This ain't your VIP lounge, superstar, he growled, his voice a low rumble. You and that old hag think you can strut in here like you own the joint? Snoop didn't flinch. He slid his shades down just enough to lock eyes with Rex, his gaze cold as ice and twice as sharp. Man, I don't know who you think you're talking to, he said, his voice smooth but laced with a menace that could cut glass. I'm just here for my mom. This dump used to be something real. Family vibes, good coffee. Now it's a pigsty with you clowns running the show. Step off, and we got no problem. The room held its breath, the tension coiling tighter than a spring. Evelyn gripped the edge of her booth, her frail hands trembling. Not from fear now, but from pride. Her son stood like a wall between her and the chaos, unflinching even as the odds stacked against him. Rex's smirk vanished, replaced by a snarl, as he took a step closer, his shadow swallowing the light. You got a mouth on you, huh? We don't take kindly to your type, disrespecting us on our turf. Buck edged in too, his fists clenched, the air between them electric with the promise of violence. Snoop's lips twitched, a ghost of a grin, but his stance shifted. Subtle, ready, like a panther sizing up a pack of dogs. The biker's eyes darted between him and Evelyn, their bravado masking a flicker of doubt. This wasn't just some washed-up celeb. This was Snoop Dogg, a legend who'd stared down worse than these punks and walked away smiling. But as Rex cracked his neck and muttered, "This ain't over, Shiny," the room seemed to shrink, the walls pulsing with the heartbeat of an inevitable clash. Evelyn whispered a prayer under her breath. Snoop was here, but the wolves were circling, and blood was about to spill. The standoff in Sunset Brew teetered on a razor's edge, the air so thick with tension it felt like the walls might crack. Snoop Dogg stood in the center of the grimy Oakland dive, his gold chains glinting like a dare, his shades low enough to flash a warning in his eyes. Rex and Buck loomed just feet away, their biker crew bristling behind them, a wall of leather and hate ready to pounce. Evelyn watched from her booth, her frail hands gripping the table, her breath shallow as pride for her son warred with dread. The jukebox had gone silent, replaced by the low growl of muttered threats and the creak of boots on the sticky floor. Snoop's voice had cut the room like a blade. Step off! But Rex wasn't backing down. His scarred face twisted into a snarl, and he spat on the floor, a deliberate insult. You think you're untouchable, rapper boy? He hissed. This is our turf, and you just signed your ticket out. Before Snoop could fire back, Evelyn rose from her seat, her voice trembling but firm. Leave my son alone, she said, stepping toward the chaos. You've got no right to... Her words choked off as Rex's head whipped toward her, his eyes blazing with a fury that made her freeze. Shut it, hag, he roared, lunging forward. Time slowed to a crawl. Evelyn raised a hand, decades of defiance surging through her, and slapped him hard across the face. The crack echoed like a gunshot, stunning the room into silence. For a split second, even the bikers gaped, shocked by the old woman's grit. Then Rex's rage detonated. With a bellow that shook the rafters, he swung his fist, a brutal haymaker that slammed into Evelyn's cheek. She crumpled like a rag doll, her frail body crashing to the floor with a sickening thud. Blood bloomed from her nose, staining the tiles red. Her silver hair splayed in a halo of defeat. Snoop's world tilted. Mom, he yelled, his voice raw, primal, as he surged forward. In a blur of motion, he tackled Rex, slamming the biker into a table that splintered under their weight. Buck charged in, fists flying, but Snoop ducked and drove an elbow into his gut, sending him staggering. The room erupted. Bikers swarmed like a pack of wolves, their shouts a deafening roar. Snoop fought like a man possessed, his rapper swagger replaced by a street-honed fury, every move a desperate bid to reach Evelyn. He pinned Rex beneath him, fist cocked to smash his sneering face, but rough hands yanked him back. 5, 6, maybe more bikers piled on, their boots stomping, fists pounding. "You're done, Shiny," one snarled, his breath hot on Snoop's neck. Blood trickled from a cut above Snoop's eye, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. Evelyn lay motionless, a fragile heap in the chaos, her breathing shallow, her face bruising fast. Rex staggered to his feet, wiping blood from his lip, his grin feral. "Should have stayed in your lane, superstar," he spat, kicking a chair aside as he towered over Evelyn's prone form. Snoop thrashed against the mob, his voice a guttural roar. "Get away from her!" But the bikers tightened their grip, dragging him toward the bar. The odds were crushing, the air electric with violence. Evelyn's eyes fluttered, a weak groan escaping her lips, and Snoop's heart pounded with a single searing truth. He'd fight to his last breath to save her, but the wolves were winning, and the night was about to turn blacker than the Oakland sky. The chaos in Sunset Brew reached a boiling point, the air thick with the coppery tang of blood and the guttural roars of the biker mob. Snoop Dogg thrashed against the swarm, pinning him down, his hoodie torn, gold chains swinging wild as he fought to break free. Evelyn lay crumpled on the floor, her silver hair matted with blood, her frail body a stark contrast to the violence erupting around her. Rex loomed over her, his scarred face split by a sadistic grin, wiping his knuckles as if he'd just won a prize fight. "Told you this was our turf," he sneered, kicking a splintered chair aside. Snoop's eyes burned with fury, his voice a ragged bellow. "You're a dead man!" But the biker's grip was iron, dragging him back as he clawed for his mom. The room spun a haze of leather and hate, every second stretching into eternity as Evelyn's shallow breaths echoed in his ears. Then the door exploded open, sirens piercing the night like a banshee's wail. 2 Oakland PD officers stormed in, hands on their holsters, faces hard as granite. The bikers froze, their fists mid-swing, but Rex didn't miss a beat. He stepped forward, his voice slick with fake panic. "Officers, thank God you're here," he shouted, pointing at Snoop. "This crazy rapper busted in here, drunk off his ass, and started swinging. Look at us. We're the victims." Buck nodded, clutching his side like he'd been mortally wounded, his swastika tattoo glaring under the flickering lights. The officer's eyes darted to Snoop, disheveled, bloodied, still wrestling against the mob, and their jaws tightened. "Hands up now," the taller cop barked, drawing his gun. Snoop raised his hands, slow and deliberate, his chest heaving. "You got it wrong," he said, his voice low but shaking with rage. "They hit my mom. Look at her." Evelyn stirred, a weak groan escaping her lips as she pushed herself up, blood streaking her face. "Officers, please," she rasped, her trembling hand reaching out. "My son's innocent. They attacked me." The shorter cop hesitated, his gaze flicking to her bruises, but Rex cut in, smooth as oil. "She's lying. Old lady's wasted. Took a fall, and he flipped out on us." The bikers closed ranks, nodding like a rehearsed choir. Their lies a wall no truth could breach. The taller officer's face hardened, his hand clamping onto Snoop's arm. "Turn around, hands behind your back," he ordered, pulling out cuffs. Snoop's heart sank, the cold steel snapping around his wrists as the room tilted again. "This ain't right," he growled, but the cop shoved him toward the door, reciting rights like a death knell. Evelyn staggered to her feet, desperation cracking her voice. "No, stop!" "He's all I got." She lunged forward, but Buck blocked her, his bulk a sneering fortress. The officers didn't flinch, their boots pounding the floor as they hauled Snoop outside. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting a sickly glow on the scene. Snoop in cuffs, Evelyn collapsing against a table, and Rex's triumphant smirk burning into the night. The patrol car's lights flashed red and blue, a cruel spotlight on a nightmare, spiraling out of control. Snoop's mind raced. He'd faced scandals, feuds, the streets, but this was a trap snapping shut, and his mom's faint cries were the only thing keeping him from breaking. The bikers had won this round, and the law was their pawn. The night outside Sunset Brew pulsed with dread, the patrol car's flashing lights painting the Oakland street in slashes of red and blue. Snoop Dogg stood cuffed, his wrists chafing against cold steel, his blood-streaked face a mask of fury and despair. The taller cop shoved him toward the car, the door yawning open like a trap, while Evelyn's frail cries, "He's innocent!" cut through the chaos from inside. Rex and his biker crew lounged by the entrance, their smirks sharp as knives, reveling in the twisted victory they'd spun. Evelyn stumbled against the doorframe, her bruised face glistening with tears and blood, her hands clawing for her son. The shorter cop hesitated, his hand hovering near his holster, but the biker's lies had already poisoned the air. Snoop was going down, and justice was a ghost in this hellhole. Then tires screeched, a black SUV skidding to a halt beside the patrol car. The door flew open and out stepped James Holt, Oakland's toughest investigative reporter, a grizzled legend with a voice that could shatter glass. His trench coat flapped in the wind as he strode forward, eyes narrowing at the scene. "What the hell's going on here?" he barked, his tone a whip crack that froze the cops mid-step. The taller officer spun, hand on his gun, but James's gaze locked onto Snoop, recognition flashing like lightning. "Snoop Dogg? You're kidding me. Why's a goddamn icon in cuffs?" The bikers shifted, unease rippling through their ranks. But Rex held his ground, his snarl faltering. James didn't wait for an answer. He marched past the cops, spotting Evelyn's crumpled form. "Jesus, look at her," he roared, pointing at her battered face. "You telling me this is the drunk lunatic you're hauling off?" Evelyn seized the moment, her voice trembling but fierce. "James, thank God. They attacked me, and Snoop was protecting me. These liars framed him." The reporter's jaw tightened, his eyes blazing as he turned to the officers. "Uncuff him, now!" The shorter cop balked, glancing at his partner, but James stepped closer, his presence a storm. "I've known Snoop for years. Interviewed him after he shut down a gang riot in LA with words, not fists. You're arresting a hero while these punks laugh?" Rex lunged forward, desperation cracking his bravado. "He assaulted us, man. Don't listen to her." But James whipped around, his finger jabbing Rex's chest. "Shut it, Scarface. I smell bullshit a mile off, and this stinks to high heaven." The taller cop hesitated, then nodded, keys rattling as he freed Snoop's wrists. The cuffs clattered to the pavement, a metallic clang of hope, and Evelyn sobbed in relief. Snoop rubbed his wrists, his gaze locking with James's, a silent pact forged in the heat. The bikers' triumph crumbled, their eyes darting for escape, but James's voice boomed, "We're taking this inside, and I want the truth, or I'll bury you all on the front page." Yo, fam, this twist got your blood pumping? Drop a 6 in the comments, and hit subscribe to catch the reckoning. Not feeling the vibe? Smash that like and spill why I'm listening. Will James and Snoop flip the script on these thugs? Can Evelyn hold on? Stay locked in, because the next chapter is going to drop jaws, and you ain't ready for what's coming. The tension inside Sunset Brew snapped like a frayed wire as James Holt stormed back into the dive, his trench coat swirling like a cape of vengeance. Snoop Dogg followed, his hoodie ripped but his stride unbroken, guiding Evelyn with a protective arm around her trembling shoulders. Her face was a map of bruises, blood crusting her nose, but her eyes burned with a fire that hadn't dimmed. The bikers, Rex, Buck, and their snarling crew, clustered near the bar, their bravado crumbling under James's glare. The Oakland cops trailed behind, their faces tight with uncertainty, hands twitching near their holsters. The room was a pressure cooker, the air humming with the promise of reckoning. James planted himself dead center, his voice a thunderclap. "All right, listen up. This ends now. I want the truth, and I want it loud, or this joint's going to be front-page carnage by morning." Rex squared his shoulders, his scar twitching as he spat defiance. "We told you, man. That rapper attacked us. She's just some crazy old—" James cut him off. Stepping so close, Rex flinched. "Save it, tough guy. I've busted bigger liars than you." He turned to the crowd, waitress, barflies and all, his eyes daring them to speak. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice raw but steady. "They've been terrorizing us since I walked in. That man," she pointed at Rex, her finger trembling, "he hit me, and my son fought to save me." Snoop's jaw clenched, his fists balled tight, every muscle screaming to finish what he'd started. The waitress, her peroxide hair limp with sweat, cracked first. "It's true," she muttered, eyes darting to Rex. "They've been running this place like a damn gang. Harassing her, then him. We were too scared to say shit." A murmur rippled through the room, and an old-timer in a corner stood, his voice shaky but clear. "I saw it all. Those punks jumped her, and he was just defending his mom. Been bullying us for months." The dam broke. Voices rose, timid at first, then bold. a chorus of witnesses shredding the biker's lies. Rex's face purpled with rage, but James wheeled on him, a predator smelling blood. You're done. The cops moved fast, the taller one grabbing Rex's arm as he lunged, cuffs snapping shut with a satisfying click. Buck roared, swinging a fist, but the shorter cop tackled him, slamming him face first into the bar. Tables crashed, glass shattered, and bikers bolted for the door, only to freeze as James bellowed, "Run, and your accomplices! Sit your asses down!" The owner, a wiry guy with a guilty slouch, shuffled forward, wringing his hands. "I'm sorry, I let him take over. Should have stopped it." Snoop shot him a look that could melt steel, then knelt by Evelyn, brushing hair from her swollen cheek. "You okay, Mom?" She nodded, a faint smile breaking through the pain. "We're all right now, baby." James clapped Snoop's shoulder, his voice low but fierce. "These clowns'll pay. Assault, intimidation, the works. I'll make sure they cover her medical bills, too." The biker's empire collapsed in handcuffs and chaos. Sunset Brew, trembling as justice clawed its way back. Outside, the Oakland nights swallowed their curses, leaving Snoop and Evelyn standing tall amid the wreckage. The sun dipped low over Oakland, casting a fiery glow across the battered facade of Sunset Brew as Snoop Dogg and Evelyn Carter stepped out into the cooling night. The chaos inside, Rex and Buck cuffed, James Holt barking orders, cops swarming, faded into a dull roar behind them, but the weight of the day clung like smoke. Evelyn leaned heavily on Snoop's arm, her bruised face a roadmap of pain, blood still crusted beneath her nose. Her silver hair caught the fading light, a fragile crown atop a woman who'd faced hell and walked out standing. Snoop's hoodie hung in tatters, his gold chains dulled by dust and sweat, but his grip on her was unbreakable. Fierce, protective, a lifeline forged in the fire they'd just survived. The street hummed with distant traffic, a stark contrast to the war zone they'd left. Yet the silence between them thrummed with unspoken scars. Snoop stopped, turning to face her, his shades long gone, eyes raw, with a mix of rage and love. "Mom," he said, his voice rough but steady, "this ain't happening again. I'm taking care of you. Your eyes, that cataract, all of it. No damn arguments." Evelyn's breath hitched, her hand trembling as it brushed his. "Snoop, baby, that's sweet. But it's not just money. I'm old. The risks." Her voice cracked, the vulnerability of age spilling out, a fear she'd buried under decades of grit. He shook his head, cutting her off, his tone fierce. "Risks don't mean shit to me. You've held me up my whole life. Now it's my turn. We're getting you fixed up, period." She looked up at him, tears welling in her good eye, the bruised one shadowed with pain. "There's something else," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. "Before any surgery, I want my boys together. You, Mark, David, all of you. I don't know how much time," she faltered, the unspoken dread of mortality hanging heavy. Snoop's jaw tightened, his heart twisting at the plea. "Mom, you ain't going nowhere," he growled, pulling her into a hug, careful of her injuries. "I'll drag Mark and David here myself. Family reunion, full squad. We're doing this right." They resumed walking, her steps slow but lighter, his arm a steady anchor. The Oakland skyline loomed ahead, jagged and unyielding, but Snoop felt a fire ignite. Rex's defeat was just the start. "I'm staying a few days," he said, his voice resolute. "We'll plan it all, docs, brothers, everything. No more running solo, Mom." Evelyn's lips curved, a faint smile breaking through the wreckage of her face. "You're my rock, baby." The night closed in, the day's violence a brutal memory, but in its ashes rose a vow. Snoop would fight for her, for them, with every ounce of his soul. Sunset Brew faded behind them, a battleground reclaimed, and ahead lay a fragile hope, fierce and unbowed.